Welcome to the Optional Boss Podcast. We're your hosts, Josh and Tyler, and this is episode 44, where we are going to talk about some sequels. Anything with a 2 in it, really. Let's be honest. Tyler, how are you?
I am good. I am excited to do a little bit
The sequel Dynasty.
See, but I don't know if it's so much a thing about sequels. At least what I have in mind is 2 is a very prestigious number, but I'll touch on that in a little bit. I'm doing well. I am excited to hopefully get into some gaming soon enough. You know, as I've mentioned the last few times, still playing SMT5. Sadly, haven't had much time for it because life, but the time that I'm putting in, still enjoyable. So that is always nice. I started Metroid Zero Mission recently via the Switch Online service. And
very good.
What a nice game. People, if you haven't played Metroid Zero Mission and you have the Switch Online service and you like old school 2D Metroid, it's a really good one. I'm not about to say like it's the best of its kind or like better than Super Metroid, but
it's a little handholdy, but it's still solid.
It's a little handholdy, but what I like about it's Metroid 1 for people who don't want to go back to Metroid 1, you know? Like...
And I'm always going to be that weird guy who says, yes, go back to Metroid 1. Like, have a rewind feature, absolutely, but Metroid 1's not that bad.
No, it has nothing to do with how bad it is.
It's better if you have a map.
Yeah, as where...
I will full-heartedly agree with that. Because there's a whole section in the original Metroid that there's nothing over there except 3 rooms that look exactly the same, and you have no idea where you are.
That is some old school NES trickery. Just like, walking into rooms in old Final Fantasy games that are just empty in the labyrinthian dungeons. But yeah, Zero Mission's a great time.
In Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 2 specific for those dead rooms, which I'll bring that game up again. But yeah, Zero Mission's a good time, but more exciting than that, today, as previously mentioned a few episodes back, I acquired that aforementioned Switch OLED. And...
oh, nice.
So, I haven't, obviously...
Do they only have the one color?
No, they have the original, red and blue, which drives me mad. And then they have the white. So, I went with the white version. And
that's the Joy-Cons, though, isn't it?
No, the Joy-Cons and the dock.
All Switch OLEDs? Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, it looks real nice next to the PS5. Like, they match now. It's neat.
I bet.
But I haven't obviously done any in-depth gaming with it. Like, I picked it up, only a couple hours before we hopped on here, really. But I did have to at least, boot it up, set up my account, and just kind of, take it for a test drive, right? And I thought, what's a good game to kind of test out the visual prowess of the Switch OLED? And I thought, you know what? Let's go back to our first impression on the Switch. And I took Breath of the Wild off the shelf. And I was just like, I'll just boot it up until I get to the title sequence, which, you know what? Say whatever you want about Breath of the Wild, negative opinion and all that. It has got to have one of the best title card drops in gaming. Like, coming out of that cave and then just that glorious vista and then just the little, Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Still gives me goosebumps, even though I've seen it several times. So I figured, you know what? That's a good first impression. And I gotta say that OLED, that's clean. Like, it looks nice.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole idea behind it.
So for those at home who may not have a Switch and are thinking about it, I would say if you're thinking you're going to play it in handheld a lot, OLED's a good way to go. It feels a bit more premium, and that screen is nice. But if you do already have a Switch and you're thinking, should I upgrade to the OLED? No, it's not by any means like a game changer of a device, right?
No. It's not like a PS Pro or anything like that,
no,
right?
The best comparison that I can make, which is why I'm pleased to have it in my collection now, is it's the Game Boy Advance SP to the SP101. They are functionally the exact same. However, that improved
They do have
backlight's
their
real
differences.
nice. And exactly. So, but you're getting real nitpicky with your preferences. But I will say, for anyone who's curious from like a first-hand user's experience of like screen difference between the standard and the OLED, uh, this is going to make the original not sound that great comparatively. But imagine looking like using the Switch OLED is like looking at something just with your eyes, and the base model Switch is like looking at something through a screen door. That would be the best way I can describe the difference. So take it for what you will. I think it's quite nice.
Maybe a little extreme on that, but still,
yeah,
the idea is the same.
There is a visual boldness. So that is my brief tech review of the Switch OLED. And I'm just kind of wondering, what do I actually want to play on it first? So that's me. How about you?
Need to play Zero Mission. Get those pixels in OLED quality.
I'm thinking that. Or Dread, because Dread dropped with the OLED, and they were like,
Dread was really nice.
Look how nice this looks on our brand new Switch we put out. So that might be.
It's very flashy. That would show up on the OLED. Quite nice, actually.
Yeah, so I don't know, something like that, or something with some real crispy pixels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forget where I left off last time we talked.
Baldur's
beat
Gate.
the Shadow of the Ur Tree, and I've been knee deep into Baldur's Gate. Still in Act 1, but I think I'm ready to move on to Act 2. I think there's only 3 acts in the game, but both lines kind of lead to you cannot make sure you do your wrap up before you go any further.
Oh,
so
this
like,
is
okay. So this is going to be the changing acts moment.
It's kind of like in games when they're like, save or do something because we're up against the final
point
boss.
of no return.
But obviously not the final boss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all the quests that I've come across, I've been able to wrap up to this point. So I just gotta make a decision if I want to go over the mountain pass or if I want to go underneath in the Underdark. It's absolutely wonderful. There's lots of things that you can do. And the stories are wacky. It can be unpredictable in some of its storytelling. Like I saved someone who was being kidnapped, and turned out they didn't want to be saved. Threw me right off, and turned out that she was trying to recreate her husband, make her husband come back to life. And she found a witch doctor that was going to do that for her firstborn. So she was being she was kidnapped from these guys. Her brother sent me out to find her, and she was pregnant. The hag, as they kept calling her, kept feeding the woman all this food, and she kept screaming for help and whatnot. Anyways, almost killed her, and so I stopped the hag, and then found out that no, the woman wanted to be there because she wanted to bring her husband back to life for her firstborn.
Well, that makes it awkward.
Wasn't actually told, I found the wand that the hag was going to use to bring her husband back. Just made his corpse lifelike. Didn't actually bring him back. He was a zombie.
Ah.
And she's just like, what is this? This isn't what I was promised. And it's like, no, you were asked for your husband to walk the earth again. This is exactly what you were told was going to happen. This did not end good for her. And it's funny because it's like, okay, well, my character is very religious. It's like, okay, I can say prayer, I can kill this abomination, or this is what you asked for, so maybe it's what you want. And yeah, she walked off with the zombie, and they're looking for someone who can make him whole again.
Ah, well, all right. Happy ending after all. It just makes me think of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, where they all end with like the romantic, heart cut fade. Where it's like some super fucked up shit happened, but you know what? We found love in the end. So
there's another moment. It's like I saw a cavern just full of like mushrooms that were spitting out noxious gas, and I know that's very flammable. So I took a fire arrow and I shot it over there. Turned out there was a gnome over there stuck.
Oh.
Oops.
Oh.
It lit on fire, and it just continuously exploded for like 5 minutes.
Oh no.
Whoops.
That
He
sounds like
was a little charred.
little sticky situation.
What I didn't realize is I found his wife, and his wife's like, "Have you seen my husband? He's a bit of an idiot." And it's like, "Oh, yes, I
Oh,
did.
oh no,
Oopsie."
no, I don't know what you're
So
talking
yeah,
about, ma'am.
lots of fun. Really enjoying it. It's very laid. It's weird because it's like it can be stressful in times, but it's very laid back. Not as difficult as I was warned. Which, as someone who does turn-based poorly, I'm actually faring out pretty easy.
Well, you also spent a good amount of time with Divinity Original Sin 2, which if I'm not mistaken is the same
Yes,
devs,
it is.
right?
It's the same devs, and it is essentially the same game. Just Baldur's Gate is like the new iteration. You could almost call it like Divinity Original Sin 3, just with a Baldur's Gate 3 skin.
So the way I look at it is, because Baldur's Gate has been around for a good while.
Oh yeah, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale.
It's kind of
Neverwinter Nights, like the old RPG, CRPG back in DOS days and early Windows 95 days.
I would
So
say.
I actually have Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 on Switch because they were ported over.
Do they play similarly? Like, are they like turn-based kind of?
Yes. Just one is very old style, one is very new.
I mean, I'm not one to shy away from old style. I like Stone Soup.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. No, I mean, yes and no. There's a lot more things that you can do in Baldur's Gate 3 versus 1 and 2.
I just reminded myself.
Like, if I want and just start piling boxes on top of each other and just make a giant mountain out of boxes, I can. 1 and 2, I can't.
So they give you a lot more freedom, which I suppose makes sense. It is trying its absolute best to replicate like an actual D&D game. So
yes, which I believe they're trying to replicate D&D 5
5th edition. I think. I don't know.
Edition?
I'm not a Dungeons and Dragons person, but I do believe that they have like particular storylines and villains and such, and rule sets.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've never. It's one of those things that, though interesting, I'm much more of a video game type. Like, yeah, give me one of them old gold box D&D games, I'll play that any day. Like, that sounds like a great time. But
so I genuinely think, like, you aren't a tactics person by any means, and this, I mean, not that it's tactics based, but
it plays like a tactics game.
You got
though.
so much movement and whatnot, so it has an idea of tactics, right? I genuinely think that you would have a good time with it.
I think it's something that I could find some enjoyment in. Yeah,
generic RPG fan.
Yeah,
You would have a lot of fun with Baldur's Gate.
I do,
because it would be one of those.
RPGs.
It would be one of those situations that it's like, okay, so I understand. I could just do this. I could do this, and then you start realizing that there's so much more that you can actually do that you didn't think would be possible in a video game.
I like
if
depth.
That makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Well, like I said, it's going to take it back to Stone Soup. I am always impressed when a game goes that extra mile to create a scenario that I did not think possible in a video game. Like I mentioned before, I think I've mentioned before anyway, how my intelligence stat got lowered so low that I forgot how to breathe. Like, little touches like that, and I feel like Baldur's Gate is very much like that kind of game where it thinks outside of the box when it comes to the shit that can occur.
Very much.
So, even just to kind of like fuck around with what you can do, no, Baldur's Gate sounds like something that I could actually see myself checking out at some point.
No, it's very good.
Yeah.
And something else I've been playing, because it just came out, NES World Championship. Ooh. And I gotta say, this thing is wonderful.
I'm excited because I just got it today.
Have you picked it up, Tyler?
Yeah, I picked up my copy.
Have you checked it out yet?
Okay, so yeah, before you even go into the game, like I haven't booted it up yet, but I had to see what's in that box. That nice weighty deluxe edition that is the only way I can get a physical, so of course I'll buy the big box.
Yep.
They went all out. Like
they kind of did,
Just starting with the box itself. It's got like a nice kind of holographic embossed design. And
it's not just a slipcover. It's an actual box.
Yeah. And then, so first of all, I gotta say the replica cartridge, that's adorable. Even the fact that it comes in like a little NES cartridge sleeve, like that was nice. I like that.
I'm just over here giggling because it's like we are so fucking nerdy. It's a box.
It's a when I took the Switch OLED, set it up, took the box. I'm like, all right, off to the other boxes with my collection, and I just put it with my other empty Switch box and other empty Switch box. Yeah, that's right, folks. That's three Switches I'm rocking now.
We may be a little bit simpleton, but we know how to be happy.
Yeah. Take joy in life where you can find it, people. And yeah, so those pins, I was not expecting them to be that high quality. Like,
no, those pins are really nice.
I kind of figured, you would
cards,
get the okay, so the cards.
I have nowhere to put this stuff. I have nowhere to put the cards. I got nowhere to put the pins. I don't have reason to have any of this extra shit, but I fucking love it.
So a couple of the cards I'm thinking about actually getting like frames for, because they're like postcard size, right? So I might put them in some frames and display them. At the very least, the balloon fight one. That is the best thing about this whole pack. It's got balloon fight representation. I am all about that shit.
And just to give you a little bit of history on Tyler, he has taken video game calendars, cut out the pictures, and put them up on his wall as artwork.
It's home decor. It's nice. Actually, funny enough, I don't know.
This is very much right up Tyler's alley.
Yeah. One of my favorite pictures that I have up on my wall, actually, from a calendar, is it's just a picture of a piranha plant. Like, I don't know, but it looks nice on my wall. Yeah, fun tip, folks. If you want some like cheap but nice art, you go get yourself some like dollar store picture frames. Get some old calendars, especially around now. We're garage sale season. People don't need those calendars anymore. They're like a quarter. And yeah, cut them up, put them in frames. Bam. Cheap, easy, decent quality print wall art. So there you go, folks. There's another bargain tip for you. And I think that was all that was in the box, was the art cards, the pins, and the cartridge. So that said,
yeah, and the actual game.
And well, yes, the reason I bought it. So what do you think about it? Because I haven't booted it up yet.
I can't tell if it's because of nostalgia or not, but I fucking love this thing.
Oh, that's exciting.
So it's, as someone who has done speedruns in the past, mainly on just Axiom Verge, someone who grew up in the era of the NES and Super Nintendo, but NES, I've played a lot of NES as a kid. It's wonderful because you're hopping in, you got the different game layouts, so you got like Super Mario 1, 2, and 3, Lost Levels, you have Kirby's Adventure, you got Balloon Fight, you got Ice Climbers, you got Kid Icarus, you got Zelda 1 and 2,
Excite Bike,
Donkey Kong, the arcade game, sorry? Excite Bike, yeah, honestly, I don't like Excite Bike. I love
Excite Bike.
Nothing is exciting about it for me. So it's just like, it's very similar to the NES Remix games, except it's done in almost the fashion of the original NES World Champions back in the day, and they clearly made this as a homage with the gold cartridge in the package, as 4 of those were given out in the world. Then also, like, right at when you turn it on, it's like, this is because a lot of people couldn't actually make it to those events, and some people had the biggest hurdle of all, of not even being born.
That will prevent you from attending a lot of things. Yeah, I speak from experience.
Absolutely.
A lot of places I was not at because I didn't exist.
Yes.
So,
but it's like Mario. I think the first Mario challenge is you got to go and get the mushroom in 1-1 as fast as possible.
Okay, so it is little things like they did in the competition. Because I think they had stuff like, collect 100 coins or get to first place in Rad Racer. I know Rad Racer's not part of it, but it was part of the original, I think.
I think Tetris was part of the original, and it's not on here, which is kind of funny.
That's also true, yes.
But, the original was only 3 games, I think.
It was 3 bite-sized challenges.
But this has a bunch of them. It's very similar to the NES remix. You got so many different things. Kirby, the quickest to swallow the ability, get the ability, or quickest to enter a door. Just shit like that. And it's very, very bite-sized type things.
How
and
fast
it's
can
absolutely
you...
wonderful. Then what's that?
I was going to say, how fast can you assault this tree?
Yeah, probably. I haven't quite made it through there yet. I've done 100 challenges so far. Some of them have been replays.
Yeah.
So, and
Very
I came
bite-sized.
first place in a silver cup online. And online is kind of done weird because it takes like 3 different random pre-recorded ones that people have actually done and performed. It's not like against a computer or something. And you got to try and beat them. So it's like random matchmaking, but just you don't know who you're matching up with.
So you're almost playing Ghosts.
Kind of, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just of 3 randoms.
Interesting.
Or in some cases, 8 randoms.
I was just going to say, yeah,
So,
didn't they have like a competition size challenge where it's like, up against 8 people?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then they got their world champion, which is like once a week, I think, is the impression I got anyways. So, and then you can go and do the events or the challenges on there and try and get the best scores. And then you'll find out the results come in a week. So I think
is it
the next one is on the 22nd.
Because I know this game kind of like, even though it has a physical, surprised it got a physical. You'd think this would be like a Mario 30 situation. But does it have like, you have obviously your just standard challenge mode where you do what the game has. And then like, does it have like weekly curated challenges where it's like, 10 different things from like such and such games?
Yes.
That's cool. I like that.
And then the survival mode that I was talking about before has its random challenges against people.
Neat. Yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. It's very bite-sized. It's perfect it is the perfect companion game, especially when you're in something as long as Baldur's Gate 3. Or Shin Megami Tensei 5.
I will always praise, the joy of a side game. It's like relaxing from a video game, which is a weird way to look at it, but those who know.
Yeah, no, very much. And you know what? Honestly, like we've talked about the side game before so many times. I'm generally not a side game player, but this is just, it's so nice.
All about that side game. I'm all about having something different to kind of cleanse the palate for a couple hours, and then you get back into those nice long 4-6 hour game sessions or something. That is just proper in my mind.
That's been today with Baldur's Gate.
Yeah. Anything else? Just that so far?
Just those 2 things. That's all I'm really playing.
And that's still a lot of gaming. What do you think? Should we talk about some 2s?
Yeah, finally gonna have an excuse to go in depth, maybe, in Star Tropics 2, so let me cue up some music. So games with the number 2, this could be sequels, this could be like maybe right in the name, this could be, there's so many things. Like if you're looking at like the old Final Fantasy games, 2 could also mean 4, but Final Fantasy 2, not necessarily a sequel, but it's a second game in the series.
Final Fantasy 2,
Mario
the game
2,
that
which
got 2.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 2 with 2 of them, 2 different versions, and then multiples after. But like Mario 2, where it wasn't actually Mario 2, it was Doki Doki Panic, but Mario 2 was known as Lost Levels in North America. Baldur's Gate 2, I got nothing to say about Baldur's Gate 2, to be honest. It's been so long since I played those.
So, my
Star
thoughts...
Tropics 2.
We'll get to Star Tropics 2, don't worry. My thoughts are... Cause like,
Mega Man 2.
Oh, that's another prolific 2, yeah. So, I think when games get a 2 in their title, going back at least to like the old Super Nintendo games, I don't know, there was something so mysterious and alluring about, the second game. Even if it wasn't technically a sequel, 2 meant improvements. in my mind. 2 meant, a refining of the formula.
That's generally what came across in your mind, right?
Yeah, and if I went to a friend's house, and let's say, for example, so like I had Earthworm Jim, and I go over somewhere, and they've got Earthworm Jim 2. And if you talk to people, they'll probably say that Earthworm Jim 1 is more fun. 2 is good, but 2 does so many different things, which was just the most intriguing thing back in the day. And it's just kind of a good example of how things used to be a lot more drastic. As we're nowadays, I'm not saying the games don't improve, but there almost feels like a little bit more homogenization with their formula. As we're back then, there was like, your sequel was experimental as fuck. I mean, look, if we mentioned it before with Castlevania and Zelda.
I was just going to say Castlevania Simon's Quest and Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, that changed to side-scrolling instead of top-down.
Yeah.
I mean, those were quite the big differences.
Yeah, and that's kind of... What I'm kind of looking into is just, the games that really shook up their formula when they got a 2 slapped onto it, or even more than that, the games with the 2 that stand out more than the games that came before it, right? So I think a really good example of that is, whichever one you want to pick, Street Fighter 2 is gotta be one of the most iconic 2s in video gaming. Not just because of the memes that you got Street Fighter 2, Turbo Edition, Super, Champion, World Champion.
There's a reason they kept with Street Fighter 2, right? Like, it was it was the one.
Yeah. It was 2 was... There are people who actually think Street Fighter 2 is the first game because the first game is so inaccessible.
And I honestly don't know. This would require me actually looking it up, but I'm sure in some areas Street Fighter 2 was the first one that they could get their hands on.
Well, the first Street Fighter was primarily an arcade game. And how much do you know about Street Fighter 1?
Nothing.
It's... Okay, well, for starters, it looks like a really old, crappy DOS game. Like, the visuals for it are bland and rough. But moreover than that, because... I mean, I can't speak to the arcade scene too much because I didn't really participate in it. There wasn't much for arcades where I grew up. But I know that when you were trying to break out in the arcade market, you really needed a hook, right? Think of like the gimmicky things like, the racing games where you actually sit in a car or on a motorcycle, stuff like that kind of makes it unique and draws it in. So Street Fighter 1, and I guess this is why cabinets are so rare nowadays. Instead of just standard arcade buttons, they had giant soft pads that you were supposed to punch.
Holy fuck, really?
Yeah. So you would still have your joystick, but then you would just be pounding the hell out of these basically like whack-a-mole sized buttons. And so of course these machines had the shit kicked out of them. And what made matters worse is the game is not, like, good to play and also very difficult. So that's going to get people even more pissed off when they're just punching the shit out of your buttons. Like,
I did not know this. Yeah. This is fantastic.
Yeah, no, Street Fighter 1 is a hilarious anomaly. And I don't know, it might be on, like, the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Collection, but to my knowledge, it's not one of those games that Capcom makes readily available. And... there is definitely a reason for that. And yet, Street Fighter 2 comes along, and it's one of the landmark fighting games.
No, I'm looking up a picture of the arcade cabinet. That is wonderful.
Isn't it? Yeah. There's a fun little tidbit for you folks. So
that's hilarious.
That's what I'm talking about when I'm talking 2s. Them leaps. Or just matters of notoriety.
The leaps and bounds?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, I don't know any cabinet-based 1 to 2s, but we've already mentioned Zelda 2 and Castlevania 2, and their kind of departure from what their first iteration set for expectations.
Oh, it's entirely different games.
You've played Zelda 2.
I have, yeah. Like, I haven't gotten terribly far. I want to say, like 2 or 3 dungeons in. It's just not something
Okay.
that I've actually powered through the game, but I have played enough of it to get the Zelda 2 experience, and it is not Zelda in any way, shape, or form. Like, it is very much doing its own thing. The fact that, like, okay, the only thing that is similar to Zelda 1, and even in its execution is so drastically different, is the overworld. And the overworld is even more like something like Dragon Quest. But it's the top-down perspective.
Yeah,
that is,
very much.
other than that,
Well,
your
the
name
fact
is
that you
Link.
have random encounters.
Are they well, they're semi-random. Like, they pop up on the map, but I mean, they do appear randomly. So, I guess, yeah.
Yes, they appear randomly, and depending on the terrain that you are standing on, is what you're going to run into. Like if you're running on the path, and a monster hits you, it's just going to be an empty path, nothing.
I actually like that the terrain bases on, because you almost enter like a small level, and it's a 2D side scroller at that point.
It is neat at a certain point, but yeah, like Tyler said, the overworld is over the top view, kind of like Zelda 1 or A Link to the Past, and your actual levels, dungeons, towns are side scrolling, like a Mario, but not Mario. And honestly, like it is a good game.
You know what's funny about Zelda 2?
It has a NES jank to it, and the crypticness of an NES game, but it's still solid.
It's very playable.
I think it would be good as not a Zelda game. I have beat it, which is hilarious because I haven't beat number 1.
You know, neither have I when I think about it. I love top-down Zelda, but Zelda 1, I just have a hard time getting through. I want to, but not bad enough that I've actually done so. Now, the thing that's interesting, though, with Zelda 2 is I remember for years, I think the sense is, like, the jury's pretty much out on this one at this point, but for a long time, people lumped Zelda into the RPG category, and I'm guessing that's mostly due to it's just, overall fantasy aesthetic, right? The only one that is actually an RPG is Zelda 2, and it's a side-scrolling platformer. But, like, you level up, you go on more or less, like generic RPG-style quest, random encounters, and like it's an RPG. It's just Final Fantasy again. Fuck.
Yep.
Speaking
just action based, so it's more like a Mana game.
Yeah.
Than a Final Fantasy.
But Mana's a lot more fun. I would much rather play Final Fantasy Adventure over Zelda 2. Yeah, no, me father was a tree.
Really?
Oh god, yeah. But I also have such a soft spot for the Mana series that's kind of biased. So
that's fair, because I mean, I liked Final Fantasy Adventures, but I would actually rather Zelda 2.
I think it's mostly
I felt
due to
like
my bias.
it has less. I mean, yeah, it's very possible. Like Final Fantasy Adventure is a good game, but I think I'd have more fun with Zelda 2, at least to a certain point.
I also
Death Mountain's questionable, but
I'll never get over.
It's more in the. I feel like Zelda 2 has a little less jank.
Oh,
and I think it's that weapon switching in Final Fantasy Adventures.
If this is a jank contest, Final Fantasy Adventure wins. It's got a good amount of jank. I mean, you could soft lock yourself in that bitch. I just love it.
As we have both done.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm pretty sure I warned you about it too. But
you warned me about the keys.
Oh yeah, that's right. But it's also the pickaxes. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's 2 forms of keys and limited inventory space. Oh yeah, that game's got a lot of jank, and also a robotic bird. What do you think? What do you think? Some other 2s that broke the mold.
I mean, we mentioned this one too, Castlevania 2.
Yeah.
And you haven't played this one either, right?
This is more like Zelda 2 than Zelda is to Zelda. That makes sense of that one, people.
In a sense, yeah. It is closer to like the original Castlevania, but it's just more open world, if you will.
First time, yeah,
more
very
Metroidvania.
Much so. Yeah, I would say
so. It was.
It has so many Metroidvania trappings to it, and I think it doesn't really get lumped into, which is weird because it is one of the Vanias.
Yeah,
I think it's just the fact that it does play primarily like a standard platformer. You don't have quite the upgrade tree and all that, but also just because people don't want to play it, which is unfortunate.
So, I mean, there's some bullshit things that NES bullshit era. For anyone who grew up, they know exactly what I mean. There is some of that in Simon's Quest, in unnecessary spots. If they just kind of kept it to a Castlevania, but open world, Metroidvania kind, it would be fine. But they put a lot of things for like artificial difficulty. You could almost chalk it up to. And I think if it wasn't for that, it would actually be a much more popular game.
I think something
and maybe speed up the little message for Nighttime Curse.
So, have you ever heard of Castlevania Rebirth?
I thought it was revamped.
Maybe it might be revamped. Might have been the name of the collection. I can't remember, but all the same, the one that was on WiiWare, that was the full-blown remake of the Game Boy Castlevania.
Oh, okay, no.
Okay, yeah, I think it's Castlevania Rebirth. But I think Simon's Quest would really benefit from that kind of upgrade where, at its core, it's the exact same game, but, update the graphics to a more, SNES, PS1 kind of style pixelated, just kind of modernize it a bit. Make the gameplay a little more smooth, but really keep all the stuff the same. Maybe even, clean up the translation a bit, right? But
oh, absolutely.
I think it's a game that if it had a more polish to it, it would go down as one of the greatest games ever made. Maybe not that far, but, one of the greatest NES games ever made.
So I'm trying to think of what it was called, because someone did do a mod pack, or not a mod pack, a ROM hack for Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest that fixed a lot of its issues that people had.
Isn't it like the Horrible Curse version or something like that?
Yeah. I want to say it was called Revamp, but I honestly don't know.
But they sped up the day to night cycle and stuff.
Yeah, and they also tuned up the graphics a bit, and they did a lot of enhancements. Changed some of the translation so it made a bit more sense. So like the hints that you got isn't just So just shit like that, right? So some other games with 2, I mean, yeah. I think everyone really knows the story behind Mario 2 and the fact that it was Doki Doki Panic.
Sure do.
And our Mario 2.
Mario 2 is interesting in its own right because the fact that they made that decision to make it a Mario game, I like the fact that Mario 1 and Mario 2, in my understanding of it, are drastically different experiences.
Yes. So like Mario 2 USA?
Yeah. Yeah, the one we got as Mario 2.
So if you think about it, it brought a lot of iconic characters into the Mario universe, like the Shy Guys and shit, did it not?
Shy Guy is my pick for Mario Kart. Yeah, Shy Guys were introduced in that.
Yeah, but he's from Mario 2, which is... It's kind of funny because...
Birdo?
They didn't technically get the... Birdo?
Yeah.
Yep. They didn't technically get that version of Mario till later on when it was redubbed as Mario USA.
Yeah.
In Japan.
Yeah. And
they're like, oh, we like these characters. We got to keep them.
Not so much these days, obviously, but I remember when I used to play a lot of Super Mario All-Stars, I would go back to 2 a lot. And I know all Mario games have, their warp pipes and all that stuff, but there was something super satisfying about just absolutely burning through Mario 2 in 4 levels.
Yeah.
You find that sequence of pipes and stuff, and the whole hidden door mechanic thing with the potion that you find. Yeah. That stuff had a lot of really unique ideas.
That is in the NES Championship, is get the mushroom as fast as possible. So you got to find the potion and pop it down, open the door, and get the mushroom.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I like that.
So it's kind of funny because we never actually owned Mario 2, but we had 1 and 3. And I believe it was my uncle who had 2, so we used to borrow it, and then we got All-Stars for Super Nintendo, and we just used to play the living shit out of number 2 all the time. That and Lost Levels.
You want to know?
Was never good at Lost Levels.
But I have beaten Lost Levels a few times now. I believe it was the All-Stars version, but I think I mentioned even in the previous episode, because we were talking about it then, that I would actually rather go to Lost Levels than Mario 1 now. But you know what is a game with 2 that was a very drastic
All right.
departure.
Before you go there, funny fact: I beat Lost Levels before the original Mario.
Oh, that's
Lost Levels I beat as a kid. The original Mario I beat a couple years ago for the first time because I never actually sat down and did it.
and I'm sure it would be much easier compared to Lost Levels. My goodness.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I've beaten Mario 1 plenty of times. And it's funny because when I was really young, I kind of had like, you know how sometimes when you're young, you mix up details of things that are very similar. And I would always get to the end of Mario 1 thinking that it was the Bowser battle where he's supposed to break the blocks. And then I realized, no, wait, that's Mario 3.
Right.
Yeah. Playing tricks on myself, doing a Mandela effect. Okay, can I go there now?
So what was the game that you were going to say?
It is in the same series, but created its own series, and that is Super Mario World 2. Because it counts.
Right.
It counts. Yeah. And, yeah.
It's
Yoshi's Island.
Technically a Yoshi game, but
it is the Yoshi game. The only one I care about, personally. I've played a couple since. Like, I think I played... I don't know. I think it was called Yoshi's Island DS. It's bad. Don't... Yeah. But yeah, Yoshi's Island, Super Mario World 2, completely different game.
I did the Yoshi game for Switch. I played the demo of that and fell asleep.
Was that Crafted World or something like that?
Yeah.
Very, very charming, but not for me.
Yeah, Yoshi's Island. It is a really good game. I enjoy it. If the biggest hurdle that you got to get over is baby Mario crying.
Just get better at the game.
The actual game itself is actually really, really freaking solid.
It's punishment for being
really
bad.
like it.
It's no different than being low on hearts in Zelda, and you get that annoying beeping. Like, yeah, you did this to yourself. But
yeah,
Yoshi's Island is, I think, the only thing that I can think of that is similar between Yoshi's Island and Mario World is obviously the characters. Mario, Yoshi, Bowser, what have you, and the fact that you can jump and you can run to jump higher. I think other than that, completely different games in aesthetic, in tone, in gameplay. Like you have a projectile weapon on you at all times, kinda, and brings wholly new characters.
Oh, with the eggs.
Yeah.
The whole fact that it's much more collectathon style.
Yep.
Where you're going in, you're getting the red coins, the 5 flowers for each level. The fact that you have a hover, the fact that you can turn into a tank or a mole or a airplane or
Super Baby Mario.
Super, yes.
Yeah.
And it probably has one of the best badass feeling Bowser fights.
Oh, that final boss is one of the most epic things that Nintendo has ever done. That was Bowser's Fury.
Does not have to go that hard.
No, but that's that's what Bowser's Fury was back then for us. So,
oh yeah, absolutely.
He's pretty terrifying and metal in that game, but that final fight in Mario or Yoshi's Island, totally worth the whole journey. And yeah, like you mentioned, the collectathon elements to it, like there was a lot more to completion in that game other than just like secret levels. Like kind of backtracking on that because by completing things you would get bonus levels, but still,
yeah.
And the whole game just had like a non-stop fun vibe, like all the different mini games that you could get and stuff like that. As where with Super Mario World, like your mini games were like hit blocks with certain timing. As where you have mini games in Yoshi's Island, like do a quiz or play volleyball against this shy guy, like. So,
and I'll fully admit, doing the volleyball with the key combinations. Jesus Christ, I forgot about those.
Yep.
Oh,
frustrating but fun.
Yoshi's Island was, if you were going for 100% completion, it was a difficult game.
Yes,
it's very daunting to do.
Well, what do you have to do in each level? You have to collect all of the red coins. You have to get all of the sunflowers, and I think you have to end the level with 20
red coins, 5 sunflowers, and 30 baby tear stars, whatever they're called.
Yeah, what's basically like your rings.
Yeah. So, like, if you get hit, Baby Mario turns into a bubble and starts crying as he goes away, and you get a timer, and it starts at 10 every level. And the more of these stars that you get, the more time you get before your baby Mario is technically kidnapped. And so it goes to a maximum of 30. So half a minute. You have to get to baby Mario to get back. And if you go below 10, it'll replenish to up to 10. Otherwise, you need to find more of these stars. So you'd have to finish level at 30 stars.
Such a good game.
So very much like the rings.
Goddamn.
Here's one that you don't actually know a whole lot about. I think you've seen a playthrough of the first one. But Parasite Eve 2.
I have seen a playthrough of the
versus
first one,
one.
I know that the second one,
so
there's a little bit of character assassination. But beyond that...
No, that's number 3.
Okay, well...
Which
one? That didn't happen.
What's that?
That didn't happen. That's just a game called The Third Birthday. That's not Parasite Eve.
That's right. So something I didn't honestly look too far into this guy's post, but he led a bunch of sources up. I have yet to go through it, but apparently Square Enix never lost their rights to Parasite Eve.
Saw something.
They just wanted to create a spin-off of Parasite Eve. So, but yeah, Parasite Eve 1 and 2. So Parasite Eve 1, it was basic. You could turn around on a dime. You're just, it's a top-down, think like Devil May Cry movement almost. But then it's like almost turn-based, just, but real-time combat.
Okay.
And
I think I know what you're getting at, yeah.
Number 2, it's still real-time, but it's more in line with Resident Evil. So they took away the free-flowing movement. They changed it to tank controls. And instead of being locked in a screen where it's semi-turn-based, it's very much almost in point with a Resident Evil game, just much more fast-paced, or maybe even a Dino Crisis. I don't want to... I've heard Dino Crisis is very much like a fast Resident Evil, so I'm kind of comparing it to that because Resident Evil is pretty slow.
Most wanted Capcom game.
Yes, I would love
least
to check it out, whether it's a port or. But so that probably won't be something that gets brought up as Parasite Eve 2, or sorry, Dino Crisis 2. But yeah, Parasite Eve 2 versus 1. Like 1, you're in Manhattan and you're just going around to the different areas. Parasite Eve 2 is very like mission structured at the beginning, and then you end up in like the Mojave Desert, so it's kind of like you got to try and figure out your ways to get around. And I'm not going to call it Metroidvania, but it's very much lock and key, like a Resident Evil game.
It's a world tour.
Just very, very different in all capacity, like fighting, enemy gameplay, story, architect sense, and overworld sense. It's just everything is very different.
Would you say it's different to its detriment? I suppose it could be, some people might prefer the first versus the second and vice versa.
So, this is where a lot of point of contention happens, because there's a lot of people who like Parasite Eve 2, and I want to say there's more people who like Parasite Eve 2 than number 1. I am a 1 fan through and through. I don't mind 2. I don't like hate what 1 is doing by any means.
You know what the first one's gameplay actually really reminds me of, and it's also another way that I can just bring it up randomly, but it actually gives me a lot of vibes with Chrono Trigger, how like you really have to pay attention to your positioning and like area of effect radius and stuff like that, and think of what the enemy can do in the same vein.
Yeah.
Just you can move.
Definitely. The biggest difference is you can actually move around and adjust yourself. But then you can also like line one of your magic or parasite powers up in a line and get 2 birds with 1 stone, right? So it's the same kind of idea as a tech with multiple characters, but not quite.
Yeah.
I see the comparison that you're going for.
Yeah, it has that.
Parasite Eve 1 versus 2.
The environment is very much a gameplay element of its own.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you have you seen anything on Parasite Eve 2?
Not a whole lot, no.
It's wacky. So whoever did the playthrough that you watched of number 1, it would be interesting to see if they did in number 2.
Yeah.
And see what their take is on it. Just because it's very, very different in pretty much all aspects.
Interesting. They really went for more of that action game market, didn't they?
Well, they saw how good Resident Evil was doing, and they're like, okay, let's do this.
You know what? You know it's
right?
another
So
uh one that the two did not survive as well. I should say definitely doesn't have the same reputation as the first. And I know this is a game that you want to play, but just have never gotten around to, and that would be ActRaiser.
oh
So,
yes.
for those who are unaware
So
or unfamiliar, it's an action platformer plus like SimCity style game.
yeah, like a God being game.
Yeah, not the
Actually, that
sequel.
just reminded me of another game
Oh,
that
was
had a sequel that didn't change the formula too much, but enough that it was very different.
it black and
Oh
white?
yeah, ActRaiser. No,
Oh. I just
Dark
figured it was
Cloud.
another God game. Oh yeah, Dark Cloud changed up the formula a lot. But going
Yeah,
back to ActRaiser for a moment, yeah, the first one, you have your God game / action platformer, and the two went hand in hand very well. Unless you're playing that remake, I don't know about that one. ActRaiser 2 is just a straight up hard as nails action platformer. And
it's almost like they took away the uniqueness that
they
made
very much
ActRaiser
did.
ActRaiser.
And not even so much like they drastically changed even the character that you are. Like in the original, I don't know what your name is supposed to be or not, but you're pretty much just like, like a knight with a little bit of an angel motif. I think there's like, wings on your helmet or your boots or something like that. As where in the second one, you're just an angel. Like just an angel dude with a big old sword and a set of wings. So you have like this
And
weird.
you're pissed.
You're so pissed because everything's terrible. And you have like this weird jump glide attack and stuff. I actually really want to play it, but it does not have the same reputation as the first one. That is for sure.
Oh God, no,
No.
no. I've been warned quite a few times when I've mentioned that I want to check out ActRaiser. It's like, okay, but just don't do two. And it's like, is it really that bad?
I don't think it's bad. I think
Find
it's
out
just
one day, eventually.
tough. It actually makes me think of like Castlevania in a lot of ways. I'm sure it's very different, but it gives me those vibes.
See, I've heard that it has that very much the SNES era of bullshit.
Hmm.
But till I can
Yeah.
actually make my own opinion on it, hard to say.
It intrigues me, but it follows that
Mm-hmm.
same kind of trend of sequels just trying to step outside the box. Sometimes for better, sometimes for
Yep.
worse. Have you played both Dark Clouds?
Yes.
Okay, so what? So I know the first Dark Cloud is you're dungeon crawling, and what you find in the dungeon is either like people or town materials, and it's like the loop is do the dungeon, expand the town, back and forth, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's very much like one town that you're looking at. It's your hometown, and you are going to the dungeon, the cave that's there, because some dark genie or something took away everything, and you're essentially rebuilding your town. The way that you rebuild the town really matters on like favoritism on certain people. Like certain people don't want to be neighbors, certain people want to be beside shop, just shit like that, if I'm recalling correctly. And the second one still has a lot of that, but its dungeon areas are done much nicer.
Oh, well, I get
But it
just
also
the.
sucks because you got so Dark Cloud 1, it feels very empty in those dungeons.
Hmm.
You're very, very samey, where number 2 has a lot more like characteristics to it.
Yeah.
And they're a lot more fulfilled. Still copy and paste. It's the PS2 era, right? So you can only do so much, but launch day versus later on. I think Dark Cloud was the launch game anyways.
I think if it
But
wasn't, it was very close to it. Yeah.
it had a lot of jank compared to 2 really refining it up. Now the thing with 1 versus 2, no, I don't know if I don't think I beat number 1. So I can't speak for that. But number 2, you got multiple towns that you're going to have to take care of and rebuild.
Ah.
And there's certain areas that, like, I think where I left off in 2, because I didn't beat 2 either, but you had to build it so much to a point where they will elevate a platform for you to actually continue on. And then you could go back to the towns and start building them up even more.
Okay, so like.
I just remember it was a lot of multi-levels, but like then you had to deal with, oh, these people don't like being so high, these people don't like being so low, and it's nitpicky, the game. But the actual dungeons was a lot more fun, a lot less jank in number 2 than number 1.
Dark Cloud's something I've always had some intrigue, but I think from the way you're putting it, I think Dark Cloud 2 is probably the better way to go. And I also like that the protagonist uses a wrench. That's just neat to me.
Well, because you're an engineer.
Cool. I like
So
unconventional
that's the whole idea.
protagonists.
Where number one, you are. I don't think there's anything special about you.
I
You
think
just live in the town that got burned.
You're this guy who is very much trying to capitalize on Link from N64 style.
You just go to the bathroom one day, you come out, and city's gone. It's like, oh shit.
It feels so much more
Gotta save the
PlayStation
world.
as well, right? Like it's just one of those things where, and suddenly, game. So this whole episode was pretty much just a way for me to talk about it. So I'm gonna talk about it. But one of my favorite games with a 2 in it is Toy Story 2. And for myself in particular, would be the N64 one, but I think the N64 and the PlayStation one are more or less the same game. But
I know we've talked about this before, and I think you mentioned that they're pretty much the same.
Pretty much. I think the N64 one might actually technically have more content, but don't quote me on that. But it is just one of the greatest 3D platformers ever made of that era. It's so good. It does what Mario 64 does, but better. And, you don't want to get in the way of his laser.
Does it do better than Banjo-Kazooie?
Okay. So Banjo-Kazooie is definitely, and same with Mario 64. Like, I would be a fool not to acknowledge it. They have more polish. Like, they are better made games. But
yeah,
I am an absolute sucker for stuff that makes me tiny in a normal world. And, if you were there for early Pixar too, like Toy Story is like the creme de la creme of Pixar. It's still pretty much like their mainstay franchise, but like back in its time, like Toy Story 2 was a big deal. And that's the weird thing about it being called Toy Story 2, because like it came out around the time of the movie, but it has nothing to do with the movie. Maybe it does a little. Zurg is in it, so. But anyway, Toy Story 1 is the not fondly looked upon platformer of.
Is that the one on Super Nintendo?
There's one for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. And it's one of those games that, like, unlike the Aladdin for Sega and Super Nintendo Dilemma, these ones are pretty similar with, like, minor differences here and there. So, my experience is with it on the Super Nintendo. And now, why didn't they use silicon graphics? Oh, no. It is, Toy Story for Super Nintendo is a surprisingly good-looking game for its time. Like, it was very much going for the Donkey Kong Country style of aesthetic, right? That pseudo 3D look. And they actually pull it off really well. It's just not great. I don't know. Maybe they should have just let you be Buzz Lightyear. And I think that was the secret sauce in Toy Story 2. Is you could be Buzz Lightyear. He's got a double jump. It doesn't do anything.
Go from to infinity and beyond.
Yeah, and he's got a laser. Yeah, no. I just wanted to talk about Toy Story 2 again. That game's great.
No, that's fair.
What's a prolific 2 for you?
One series that I actually really like, but I've never actually played the original 2 of this, and that's Metroid 2.
I was really opening the floor for Star Tropics there, but you know what? We'll go back to Metroid. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no Star Tropics. Star Tropics 2. Yes, we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah. Yeah, Metroid 2 for the Game Boy instead of NES or Super Nintendo. Like, 1 was on NES, 2 was on Game Boy, 3 was on Super Nintendo, 4 was on Game Boy Advance, 5 was on a console again.
It was
really hot.
If what I believe from, like, leaks and stuff is true, Metroid 5 was supposed to be a DS game.
Right.
Dread was something that was in production way back then. So it and then it slept for a little while.
So yeah, it took a different approach to like the original Metroid game. Even compared to 3, it's different. It is very much like a Simon's Quest kind of odd man out, where this is, instead of like, yes, you're going around getting different abilities and everything, but at the same time, you are more so hunting So that is your goal, is to destroy all the Metroids. So you got a little counter, and you got to try and find all the Metroids in an area, kill them off, you'll get abilities, continue on. As opposed to, you know that there's bosses, you see couple statues that outline the bosses, try and find them, kill them, and then that way will open up. That's how it was in Metroid 1 and 3. Before you can get to Turian. Turian?
I believe that is. But what I think is interesting about Metroid 2, now I haven't played it yet. I do intend to at some point, because I can go back to an old Game Boy game like that. And
I've played AM2R.
I do also want to do AM2R. That's what a remake.
AM2R is wonderful. It is a remake of 2 with fusion gameplay.
But I think, well, one, it's incredibly ambitious to try something like that on the Game Boy. Like, my goodness.
Yes.
But the fact that it's not your simple, like, A to B, get to the end, beat the final boss, hooray, you did it kind of game. The fact that, like, you cannot beat this game without thorough exploration, that one's very unique for its time.
It is. It is very much. And it's all about, like, killing things instead of getting the upgrades.
Yeah.
And yes, you still need the upgrades, but it's not the upgrades that are going to be your lock and key like a typical Metroidvania.
No, it's murder.
Like Metroid 1 or Super. It's murder. Oh, the lava's too high. Kill so many Metroids and it goes down.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
I want to do that one.
AM2R is definitely the way that you should experience it. But
well, there is the 3DS
it's also something
remake
to be
as
said
well.
About.
But I don't want to do that one because AM2R exists and it is sprite based. It wins. Just simply on aesthetics.
It's the whole elder millennial view. Of that, I guess.
I'm old.
Yeah. Sprite art, pixel art is always going to be better than like an attempt at 2D.
It looks pretty.
3D 2D.
You know, like I
prefer it better.
Dread
looks great.
Dread is,
but
you know what? It would be cool if Dread was pixelated, but I think for what Dread was doing, I'm glad it was a 3D game because it made it work really well.
They did a good job with it.
Yeah. But I'm still gonna say like Seiken Densetsu 3 looks way prettier than something like. I guess the page for this, but like, you know, Elden Ring, very pretty game, don't get me wrong, but have you ever seen the leaves in those trees in a mana game? Like, that is art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's much more, and I think a lot of it comes down to like something that's being hand animated instead of like motion capped.
It
almost feels like AI art.
Well,
but it's not. Yeah, you know what I mean?
I get what you're getting
pixel art, yeah, you can definitely have AI art, but yeah. You know what I'm trying to say.
We're swerving into a hell of a different direction one day.
Oh,
we should get AI to do one of our episodes.
Fuck no.
Just feed it every episode, and it's just gonna be it's just gonna be bots of us going Chrono Trigger, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Trigger.
Happy sequel.
That's for the Patreon, folks.
Oh no.
That would be the worst use of AI. Oh my god. Anyway, back to 2.
It's keeping people out of whatever. Star Tropics 2. Star Tropics 2. Time to talk Star Tropics 2.
There it is.
Anyone who's listened to this show for a while, you know that I'm a diehard Star Tropics fan. Although I will say, if they ever came out with a new Star Tropics game, I don't think it would ever work. But I do want to see Star Tropics 2 on the SNES Online one day.
I think that's your balloon
Will it
fight.
happen? I don't know. It very much might be.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because I never knew anyone that really owned Star Tropics growing up. I know more people now than I did, but a lot of people don't actually realize that there is a number 2. Now, I said before on a different episode, I think it was maybe last episode actually, it's technically Zoda's Revenge, Star Tropics 2, but it's... Yes, it does things differently. You no longer have the grid-based movement. You aren't using a yo-yo for a weapon, although I think there is... You get like the spark thing that gets upgraded, and then its distance is, depending on how far it's upgraded. You can do diagonals in Star Tropics 2. And it's all based on, instead of like having... It still has its original story, but you're essentially going back through time to stop Zoda from getting the tetrads, because it has a play-in with Tetris.
Oh, wait. Oh, that's right. You're getting the different Tetraminos.
Yes.
Ah.
Because they all link up into, like, a rose, which brings the, what are the names? But, like, the first one you save all the alien children, who was trying to get away from Zoda.
Yeah.
The aliens, because they essentially had their world wiped away. So they're the only ones remaining to bring their world back together. And then they catch wind that their father is actually still out there, but he's trapped amongst time and space. So you start going back through time with your uncle reading this like ancient book that he found because he's a big archaeologist. And so you're going through time through different time zones. So you got the Da Vinci era, you got the Sherlock Holmes era, you got Knights of the Round era with King Arthur and the Sword and the Stone and Merlin. There's Dracula era and the mining gold rush era. You got all these it's very thematic. Cleopatra era is the very first main one, right? Caveman era is the first one.
So I'm wondering if this took a lot of cues from Back to the Future.
It very much could have been.
So American, that game.
But yeah, it was very much like an enhanced on steroids Star Tropics 1. Took out the grid-based movement, so everything was very free-flowing. A lot of depth to it, where the first one you didn't have any kind of depth, it was just all flat. This actually had like different levels of platform that you could jump on while still being over the top.
That actually sounds like a pretty big upgrade.
It's a huge upgrade. It's a massive like change on the overall play style.
I know that,
and yeah,
we've discussed it before. I've tried and I just cannot get through Star Tropics. Maybe one day, but I haven't had that day. And though I have not beat Star Tropics 2, I played a little bit. I liked it. It was neat. It played better. It felt better.
Yes, because it gets rid of that movement. Star Tropics, the biggest issue people have is the actual movement of it.
It's just so chunky.
It is chunky. Number 2 gets rid of that chunkiness.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it feels very smooth. I would if they put that on the Switch Online, I will give it a solid proper go.
I will say this: get good at the bosses, because the final the final level is a boss gauntlet.
Oh.
You have to fight a version of every single boss before touching the final boss.
Ooh,
and
accepted.
if you die, you are starting back at that first boss.
That's better than just like a rude, like, instant game over.
True.
I guess it kind of is, but
actually, no. I think you can try. It's been a while.
What? Ooh.
Although I do have my Nintendo drawer showing up, so I'm going to have my original NES hooked up here, and I'm going to be going deep diving into Star Tropics 2, I think. That'll be the first thing I'm testing out.
That sounds like a good time. Well, I think
you got any other sequels?
I was going to say
that change it.
I was going to say ones that don't so much change but refine. 2 very iconic 2s, Mega Man 2 1, and also Sonic 2. These are like,
yes,
they would fall into the category of like almost like Street Fighter 2. Like, they were so good that they damn near invalidated the previous version.
Yep.
And that's another one of a more, they say more recent, but we gotta be like, 20 plus years these games have been out. But Kingdom Hearts 2 is probably one of the more prolific 2s around, which is hilarious because like, it's one of those things, as a video game, you would love to recommend it to anybody because it's so much fun. But as a story, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Wait.
It's funny. I played the living shit out of Kingdom Hearts 1 growing up. Never touched 2.
2 is, I've beaten both 1 and 2 and Chain of Memory, so I knew what was happening in 2. And Kingdom Hearts 2 is just so fun. Like, they added so much more fluidity to combat, gave you way more tools. It's not like how in Kingdom Hearts 1 it was just like, well, better use magic because that's all I got going for me. No, they added so much more just combat's something else. Like, it is fast and frantic and a great time. The mobility is probably the biggest thing that, like, I'm sure, I don't know how well you recall playing Kingdom Hearts 1, but, like, the game completely changed once you got that kind of, like, glide maneuver that you could do. Like, it was way later in the game.
Yep.
And yeah, you can do that kind of, like, glide, as where you pretty much have that from the get-go in this one, and it's way faster.
Good.
And significantly more incorporated into combat. You're not just kind of like floating to the corner of an arena like a paper airplane. Like,
must kill Mo.
Yeah. No, I think Kingdom Hearts 2 definitely goes in the discussion of 2s that surpassed the 1.
Ones that I don't think surpassed the 1 by any means. Dark Souls 2. It had a lot of wacky design choices.
Yeah, but that's also
outside of that, like if it didn't have its wacky design choices, I think it would be just fine. I mean, it still is fine, but I much prefer number 1, and I know a lot of people are very much on that same boat. But there are some Dark Souls 2 fans.
I think that
they prefer Dark Souls 2 out of them.
And, you know, I don't have many examples to pull from. This is a very common practice with a lot of video game franchises, and this would be one of Dark Souls 2's bigger trappings, is when they start developing games in tandem with different teams, right? Now, I know that wasn't exactly why Dark Souls 2 happened. I think that was just more of an outcry for more Dark Souls, and they were like, well, you know, our main team's busy, but you guys can make it.
Yeah.
But a franchise that definitely does this quite often, not a franchise you're going to hear me bring up a whole lot on this this year podcast, but I believe Call of Duty is one that does the alternating developing, though they might not have started that till like they had 12 games. So,
although so since we went there, I've mentioned before that like my favorite genre used to be FPS.
Yeah.
And nowadays I can't really stand them, but
we like some boomer shooters.
Call of Duty 2.
Maybe we'll talk about those
boomer shooters, absolutely.
Yeah.
We should.
Yeah.
We really should. Doom, Quake. I mean, Quake 1 was the artist for the soundtrack was my favorite artist. So, where was I? I was
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty 2. So the last Call of Duty I played was Modern Warfare 3, the first time around. One of the first Call of Duties is, well, I guess it was the second one, but I played Call of Duty 1, played the ever-living shit out of the campaign for Call of Duty 2, and I just found it fascinating, like, really being into, like, World War II history and stuff. Just doing D-Day on the beach, storming the beach in Normandy, and, like, being on veteran and actually trying to make it as hard as possible. There was something about that just, like, it really hit me to kind of experience it inside a video game.
Damn. Weren't expecting to trigger that level of nostalgia, were ya?
No. Nowadays, Call of Duty can go fuck itself.
Yeah.
But
see,
I will always have that soft spot of Call of Duty 2.
Okay, so
the original Call of Duty 2.
Here's another. I don't know if it was an entirely different team, but on the topic of, I think it was a different team now that I think about it. BioShock 2 and yeah, because I want to say like there was the original team and then there was just a division at 2K that whipped up BioShock 2. Yeah, and we're not experts here, folks. If you want to call us out on it, feel free. We like the engagement. What? Yeah, it's still a BioShock game at its core. You know, you're in Rapture and you've got the Atom and all that fun stuff, but they did so much unique with the gameplay where it feels like an entirely different game, and admittedly, a way more fun game than BioShock 1. BioShock 1, you come here for the events. 2, you come here for just electrocuting and drilling people at the same time. Oh, it's so good.
2 was a spectacle, mostly because you got to play as a Big Daddy.
Oh, it's great.
In number 1, you are fearful of these things. Number 2, you get to be the fearful thing.
And it feels like you are powerful as fuck in that game. I've been itching for BioShock for a while, so don't mind
so
me.
There's been leaks about a BioShock 4.
Really? Because I know that the BioShock team,
and there's also Judas.
Yeah, they're the ones doing Judas, and Judas it just looks like BioShock again, but you know.
No, there's some leaks. Granted, again, leaks. about a Bioshock 4. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes through.
Isn't there like a TV show around the corner as well?
I wouldn't say it's around the corner, but it is in production.
Uh-oh.
I think it's just in pre-production, though.
I think Bioshock will work as a TV show. Not another thing you won't hear us mention on the show much. But
I think it has its possibility.
What about you got any?
Hard to say though.
Got any more twos? We could probably put this thing to a close here, but I think we'll ramble a couple
There's
off.
some twos that just enhance the formula, like you said. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
Tony Hawk 2 is a very very prosperous 2.
Yes. A 2 that I didn't enjoy as much as the first one. Axiom Verge 2.
Blasphemous 2.
Dark Souls 2. Oh yeah.
That one needs another a little bit more analyzing though, because I think I don't want to be hard on Blasphemous 2.
We really enjoyed Blasphemous 1. Hell, we did a episode on it.
Yeah.
For episode 25. Blasphemous 2, it was a good game. I just don't know if I need to do it a couple more times. Because, like, my original opinion on Blasphemous 1 is like, yeah, this is good, this is neat. But it wasn't until, like, a couple playthroughs after, mainly my second playthrough through it, that I'm like, oh, yeah, I love this.
This is one of the greatest games of its style. Like, so,
yeah. I need to play Blasphemous 2 again. Before I can actually give a definitive answer on that.
You know what the wild thing is? It's a small thing to be nitpicky about, essentially, since 2 pretty much gives you the same thing. I just think it's because you don't have the mea culpa. I think that sword just makes all the difference with how that game feels.
I mean, yeah, I get that.
It's just big, heavy sword.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
One that doesn't really count, Earthbound. Or Mother 2 in Japan.
Mother 2, yeah.
I give that a shout out. It's wonderful. It is just a upgraded version of Mother 1 with that has a bit more sense in its wackiness.
I mean, a 2 in everything but name. So, we have Secret of Mana, which again would be the sequel to it, Final Fantasy Adventure, which takes the same concept but upgrades the shit out of it.
Or as Second Densetsu 3 was always called amongst people, Secret of Mana 2.
That if that was in the 2s discussion, it would be one of the best 2s. Does Banjo-Tooie count? It's not technically a 2, but it's kind of a 2.
It has a 2. We didn't say if it's TWO or TOO.
It also had feature bloat. I want to give Banjo-Tooie another go, but I think 1 is just it.
Is it on the N64 Online, or are we still waiting on that?
I think we're still waiting on that. Another
that's one I'm gonna have to check out.
Another 2 that completely outshadows both its sequel and predecessor is Donkey Kong Country 2. That's the best one apparently.
It is really good. It is also known as the hardest.
I would agree. Some people say 3, but I actually thought 3 was kind of easy. So
no, 3 was a little on the easy side. It had some difficult moments.
It had its challenge for sure. But I think 2 puts you through the ringer.
Yes, I think Donkey Kong Country 1 is probably the easiest.
It's got a good balance, right? It gradually escalates. To Arrow the Acrobat 2.
Resident Evil 2.
Resident Evil 2, yes. Yeah.
Or the remake of Resident Evil 2. That's wonderful.
Would you like Resident Evil 2?
What would be a game that you'd like to see
a 2? A definitive 2?
Second sequel.
A second sequel?
What game would you like to see with the
number 2 at the end of it?
What's a game that you would like to see it? Yes.
I've been saying this for a while, actually. And I know they're cooking up something that, from the sounds of it, is going to have an entirely different number at the end of it. But I would love to see a Shovel Knight 2. Like a proper just sequel to Shovel Knight, basically Mega Man 2, that shit. That would be amazing. But it looks like Shovel Knight 64 they're skipping ahead. But I think Shovel Knight 2 would be a jaw-dropping announcement for myself.
Yep. No, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm kind of stuck because 1 would be really neat, but I know it's not even a thought, I believe. Actually, both these are not a thought. Iconoclast 2.
Iconoclast 2 would be really neat. I don't know what they would do with it.
I
but
don't know what they would do.
I would be very happy with,
And
give me that world again or something like that, or even something that carries from it. I don't know.
Yes.
Prequel, even if it's a 2.
Or Sekiro 2.
Bloodborne 2. Ooh. What else would I want to see get 2'd? Uniracers 2.
Star Tropics 2 on this or on the NES Online.
That would be nice, yeah.
That would be wonderful.
I would love to see a Deadbolt 2. I would love to... Oh, how did I not mention that? Risk of Rain. That is
Oh, yeah.
one of the wild versions of a 2. Like, it's so weird how it's a completely different game in an entirely different genre, still the same game.
The same game, just
3D.
a third axis at it.
Yeah. Maybe that's what Shovel Knight 64 will be. Ooh, okay, I got excited.
That'd be cool.
Now. But I was going to say a Deadbolt 2, which, because of the same people, that would make me happy.
Right.
Yeah. Hades 2.
No, that's some good.
That actually exists, though.
Hades 2. That
kind of.
It does.
It's on its way to existence.
Yeah. It exists in early access, I think. Or is it just still beta?
I think it's technically early. I think it was in a beta or an alpha test for only like a month, and then they went early access. So, people, you can play Hades 2 right now if you want. Don't tell me what happens in it. I'm being patient. I'm going to wait.
Yeah, it is out for early access right now.
Yeah.
Just looked up on Steam.
How did we not mention Diablo 2? That's like one of the best 2s ever.
So yes, by popular majority, absolutely. I am going to take the boomer approach. I love Diablo 1.
No, I have much more of a... I haven't played Diablo 2, but I have a soft spot for Diablo 1, and just like, it's incredibly straightforward nature. Something about that does a lot of charm to me.
Yeah. It's just the 16 levels of hell.
Yeah.
It's also where I started off with Diablo, so...
It's not a series
Diablo 2 is really good, though.
Like, I don't think you have a lot of experience with it, but, like, Borderlands 2 is very much the one that overshadows its prequel.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it really took the humor to a next level. Became wacky because it wanted to be wacky, where the first one was very much, we want to dabble in being wacky, but not that wacky.
I'd say the first one is quirky, and then the second one is just off the hinges, you know?
Yeah. No, that's fair enough. That's a good way of putting it.
The only problem with it, though, is because they went so bombastic in the second one, and it's like, now every Borderlands game beyond it, I can't take seriously. And that has sadly kind of soured me on the franchise.
Yeah.
So
no, I can definitely get behind you.
There's a case of being done
There's
too
going to be
well.
a movie.
Is there going to be there is going to be a movie. That's right.
With Jamie Lee Curtis and Kevin Hart.
That's going to be interesting.
Kevin Hart is Roland.
That's a very interesting choice.
I don't.
He's in everything now.
I'll hold judgment.
Yeah, it's one of those wait and see how it turns out, right?
I've been pleasantly surprised in the past, so we'll see.
Yeah,
but how about we start wrapping this up?
I'm gonna think of one more final 2 to wish for, and then let's
wish into existence.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
What's a game franchise that I like enough that only ever got one? Ooh, you know what would be a really cool game that I don't think will ever get revisited? If they ever did an Okami 2, I think that would be a really interesting thing to exist.
So I think it was the original director just reached out to the rights holder saying that he would love to do an Okami 2.
I think that's Platinum Games now.
Is it?
I think so, because they were Clover Studio, and I think Clover became Platinum.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be cool.
Yeah, there was something like that. I want to say I saw on Twitter.
Well,
it was just very brief. I don't know much on the series. I don't know. I could be thinking of a different series even, but I'm pretty sure it was Okami.
I'm gonna just start willing. What about you? What do you want? Do you want 2 treatment?
So this is going to be a remaster 2 treatment.
Ooh, like the Resident Evil
Alright.
2 treatment?
Kind of.
Okay.
Because Silent Hill 2. Fuck me. That was yeah.
Damn, how didn't that come up?
I don't know. But what I was thinking was they did a remaster or remake for Medieval.
Ooh.
And it would be nice to get Medieval 2 remaster.
That would be nice, just because there was only the 2, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no, complete the collection. Do it before you decide to come out with the PS6, because I know you're thinking about it and cut it out. I just got my PS5.
Bubsy 3D 2.
Oh, felt that in my spine.
Okay. Siphon Filter 2.
Is that not a thing? Oh, you mean like the remake treatment?
It is. No. I just Bubsy made me think of it's another game with the 2 that did decent.
Oh yeah, no. Siphon Filter 2 was
it's a
definitely
decent
it was the more renowned of them. Siphon Filter 3 was the one that no one had.
Yeah, I still have it. So Siphon Filter started with the same team that did Bubsy 3D.
That's right. I forgot. That's how that segue works.
Yeah.
All right. If we're gonna wrap it up, I'm just quick firing it because I can slip it in again in another episode. Robopon 2. That's all I got for today, folks.
Balloon Fight 2.
Yes, please.
That's not a Hello Kitty version.
Wait, there was a Hello Kitty version? I know there was a Tingle version.
No, Japan got a Hello Kitty Balloon Fight. And it was technically a Balloon Fight 2.
Oh, right, Balloon Kid. But they got, yes, okay. I know what you're getting at now.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. That's been episode 44. We've been Josh and Tyler. You can catch us over on Twitter or Instagram or YouTube now at Optional Boss PC. And next time, Tyler, any closing comments?
Yeah, if you're going to comment on this, tell us some 2s that you love, some 2s that didn't quite live up to their expectations, or some 2s that you would like to be 2'd, and we will to be continued to... No, that's it for me. Follow us on social medias.
We'll try and get back to you. Bye!
Bye!